welcome to the Cult Connections Review Show. I'm your host, Ian Graham. In every episode, I will be joined by a guest to review what's new in the world of film and TV. So whatever takes my fancy, hopefully takes your fancy too. Come and join us on the Cult Connections Review Show. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Cult Connections Review Show. I am joined today. I was going to call him the guest, but actually he will be my co-host for the next 6 weeks. It's Mr. Nathan Greenaway. How are you, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Ian, yourself?
Yeah, I am there good now because we've taken about half an hour to get set up here. Lots of the gremlins going on, but we are all good now. So obviously today we are talking about episode 1 of Moon Knight, which came out on Wednesday. On our preview show, obviously we talked a lot about the character from the sort of comic, their stories. But we really didn't know what we were going to get with this one there, Nathan, did we?
No, we didn't know what we were going to get, and it appears that it's kind of what we sort of thought they were going to do, is that they've kept a lot of the lore. They've kind of twisted it into their own sort of way. And because Mark Spector, who we were talking about the other day, is there. We don't know a lot about him yet in the Marvel universe, but he is there. Khonshu's there. It's just this new guy, Stephen Grant? Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Stephen Grant.
Yeah. He Stephen with a V, as he nicely pointed out at one point, is there. He's a very new character, but there's some similarities, there's some differences, but I think we'll discuss those as we go.
Sure, yeah. So we're just gonna. I think as well. We did speak about the tone of the show, and what we did kind of feel is that we again could get sort of anything. My feeling from this, and I'm quite happy about it, is that we're getting the more strange side of their sort of Marvel in a way. I did get that sort of feeling.
Yeah, they're kind of telling us that everything exists in the Marvel universe, because we've had Norse mythology from Thor. The Eternals kind of digged into their own sort of gods in the Marvel universe, but now we're getting all the Egyptian gods as well. So we've not delved into kind of Christianity at any point in the MCU yet, but they're telling us that all these gods and all these mythoses do exist. They're all there, and I know Mephisto at some point is coming as well, who kind of delves more into kind of the Christianity side of the religion and the gods. So
okay,
they're opening up a world where basically everything exists. So it's all going to be but it's good fun. It was a good episode.
Yeah, it was. I absolutely loved it. So this one was titled "The Goldfish Their Problem." Now I don't know, there is a couple scenes with the goldfish. I don't know if this is a comic thing. Is there a goldfish in the stories at all, or is this a new thing?
Not that I know of. I think the goldfish problem was kind of was very much sort of Stephen realizing something's amiss. Really, he's a strange dude, Stephen Grant. But it was kind of when the goldfish's fin was back that's kind of when it all began to unravel for him. Because then, as we'll get into, he then realized he was late for his date. He thought he was on time for his date, but he was actually 2 days late, all because his fin grew back. So what happened with that?
Who knows? This is it, and we'll find out. So the episode starts. We see Ethan Hawke's their character now. He's smashing a glass and he puts it in his shoes, and then he goes walking on this glass. Is this a thing? Is this a
So Arthur? What's his name? Arthur Harrow. I think, is
Hmm.
he's in the comics, but he's like a doctor of pain theory, and he
Okay.
works on kind of he was up for the Nobel Prize at one point, but then it turned out that he was actually involved in these horrible experiments at Auschwitz. So he was in the comics at
Oh,
kind of like the 80s there. So it's a very different character, it seems. But I think kind of him walking on glass in his shoes kind of shows that there is that sort of pain tolerance part to the character is still
okay.
there. So there's a very different take on the character because obviously it's a different timeline
Yeah.
as well. It's kind of setting sort of present day as far as we know, rather than sort of being in the 80s or in World War Two. But yeah, that character's sort of fascination with pain is seems to still be there, given that he's walking on
Yeah.
glass.
Mhm. Yeah.
So very
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
scene that makes you wince a bit to open the show.
Absolutely. Yeah. Haha, yeah. A nice start. So we go from that. We see these scales, the sort of tattoo on his arm as well. Now, I would imagine this is a big thing that this plays a big part sort of going on.
Yeah, so this is in ancient Egypt. What they believe is that your heart, which is why they leave your heart in your body, is sort of weighed against a feather on these scales by the gods.
Uh-huh.
And if it balances, then you're a good person. You can go into the field of reeds. If you're a bad person, you're damned from there. So that those scales kind of represent kind of the more Egyptian side of what the
Yeah.
gods are up to.
Okay, good, good, good. So next we see Oscar Isaac strapped to a bed. He's got sand on the floor. Like, there's there's a tape over his the door. Obviously, something's going on when he's sleeping, but at this stage we don't know. Um, then we get, and this was a little bit of a shock for me because I really hadn't looked at anything whatsoever. So he's getting ready for work. He goes out to work. He's in London of all places. Now I wasn't really expecting London. I didn't know that London would be there. But that's always nice. Um, Now he's talking to his mum. It seems on the phone. Um, but what got me thinking, and as the episode goes along, is who is he actually talking to here?
Or who
That's
does he
that's going to
think
be an
he's talking to?
interesting one. Yeah,
The
exactly.
theory
Yeah.
so far
So.
is that he thinks he's talking to his mum, but I don't think his mum is alive or is really that's not
Hmm.
her number or something for a long time. There's a bit later on where he obviously gets is it a postcard? He gets
Hmm.
at some point, but then there's another scene, and if you look very carefully on the shop that he walks past, the same postcard is for sale. So, which
Ah.
makes you think that it's Mark. That it's probably Mark leaving these things to try and keep Stephen as sane as possible. So he thinks
Okay.
his mum's still around. But yeah, set in London,
Yeah.
bustling London, sort of one of the
Yeah.
museums. I don't know which museum. Um,
No. 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 I didn't actually look too much into that. I'm sure London listeners are going to be seething with this that we don't know this. I do know some of the chat has been and let's face it, in any show, in any film set in London, the geography is all a bit wrong. Um, so like apparently where he's traveling from and to work, the bus is actually going the wrong way.
oh
The tube
no!
station's not right apparently.
You're
So
telling me the TV
um,
show about a man having an Egyptian god control his body with a second personality got the London geography wrong?
yeah.
Let's really focus on the wrong bit. Like, guys, London is impossible to travel around. They're going to get whatever tube station they could get to film at. Like, a show where it takes Stephen 2.5 hours to get to work is not interesting. like, like,
um, no, very true. But again, if you do know somewhere, I mean, I don't really know sort of London. But if you do know it and you see these things, it always kind of, I think it does, it kind of catches their sort of attention. Um, so I do have to mention there, Nathan, Oscar Isaac's English accent. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's good. It's very kind of traditional, kind of. I don't know how he's got a kind of upper class sounding accent. Like you can imagine, he raises his pinky when he drinks a tea, kind of that sort of accent. But he gave some good contrasting voices. Oscar Isaac. Oscar Isaac is obviously excellent and a fantastic actor. So he had to give us two very different voices to differentiate between Mark and Stephen. And I think he delivered that. So no, I think it's fun.
Yeah,
I think the kind of nasally, wheezily sounding voice for Stephen kind of just gives more sympathy to him a little bit as well.
yeah.
But I think
I
it's a
got
good. I think it's good.
yeah. Uh huh. Yeah, yeah. I think he did it well. I was thinking the he was quite a bit like Martin Freeman. I did get that quite a lot. Um, he did make me think a little bit of his Arthur, the Dent from their sort of hitchhikers.
Yeah.
So I did get that kind of vibe from it. I did sort of pick up on that. But no, I think you're absolutely right. He did it well. So he works at the museum. Um, Now, Donna, that's his boss. She has quite a unique sort of management style going on there, Nathan. That
Oh,
was.
I don't know. I've had
I don't
management.
think I would like to work for her.
No, I've had managers like her in the past, so but not very nice. So Donna is a reference, or the name Donna, because there's Donna Kraft who worked at Spectre Corp in the comics, so which was like
Okay.
which kind of funded the Moon Knight operations and stuff. So that's a little reference for people, I think, or it's an accident that she's also called Donna, one of them. But yeah, not the
Right.
best management style. Kind of typical person that hates their job but loves power sort of management style. Just
Yeah.
telling everyone to do things and not appearing to really do a lot themselves. I think we've all worked for people like that. So it makes
Yeah.
Stephen a bit relatable. Doesn't really even know Stephen's name, so not someone that will probably last in a management post, and not a character that we're gonna like. So maybe Donna will meet Mark one day, and then we won't ever see her again.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. As I would love there to see that. We find out Stephen's got a the date set up with someone else who works there. Um, Although he knows nothing about it, so again, that's another sort of pointer that something strange is actually going on. Um, After work, he's speaking to this living their statue, so he's sitting there, so it's one of those guys who's tourists take their photos with and such like, and he's having a lengthy conversation with him. Sounds like he does this a lot. Um,
Yeah, so the living
I
statue
don't know if
seems to resemble a guy called Bertrand something, who's in the comics as well, but he's a homeless guy in the comics, and he's
okay.
someone that kind of is an informant for Mark Spector. So there's a bit of resemblance there, although Stephen didn't say what the guy's name, what the living statue's name is at
Hmm.
any point. But I reckon that's where that's probably come from. Although he's be a rubbish informant because he obviously can't speak. Or he might just
Yeah.
be somebody that doesn't even know Stephen, who Stephen just goes to talk to because he's a very lonely man.
Who knows? Who knows indeed? Yeah. So it's back to the flat now. We have uh, uh, this sequence series. Obviously, he's trying to stay awake. This is obviously a big thing. So obviously, things happen to Stephen when he's sleeping, or he thinks he's sleeping. Um, and then he wakes up in a field in the Alps.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wish I could go to sleep and wake up in the Alps. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
It absolutely would, wouldn't it? It would be brilliant. Um, so there's there is so in this point he hears a voice. So there is a voice there talking to him now. I'm assuming this is their
That's
Khonshu.
Khonshu, yeah. So I can't remember the
Yeah,
actor's name now. It's gone out my head. I had it in my head before we started.
it's
Is it Arthur something? Arthur B something?
is it not F. Murray Abraham who's playing Khonshu?
Perhaps,
I
but yeah,
believe it is.
it's a good voice anyway, and it's a really there's some great cinematography and kind of sound work in this show to kind of make us even when we can't see the other personalities, we can kind of almost see them through the way that it's shot. So yeah, he wakes
Yeah,
up in a field, dislocated jaw, looking pretty beat up at this point, doesn't he?
yeah,
So he's not in a good way,
yeah.
and we kind of get a very graphic shot of him opening up and seeing his jaw realign itself, which was delightful. And he's outside this big kind of grand looking castle slash manor
Mhm.
as well, and he just waves at a guard who is useless and just waves back. So
Yeah,
and right before they open fire and start shooting poor Stephen. But Khonshu, yeah, Khonshu calls Stephen a worm at this point and tells him to go back to sleep.
uh-huh.
So I think that's quite a representation that Khonshu obviously doesn't have that much the control that he desires over Stephen for some reason. Because Stephen waking
Uh-huh.
up seems to throw everything out. So this big
Yeah,
scary looking god who we do get to see at one point or a couple of points doesn't seem to have all the control.
yeah. And he does kind of reference him as the idiot later on, which
I think he calls him
um,
a parasite as well at one point.
yeah, haha, yeah. So anyway, so he goes there to the village. Um, Ethan Hawke's there. Arthur Harrow is there. All of the villagers seem they to know him. Seem to be in his their sort of power or their circle, and we see him again using the scales. So and like it's almost like sort of judging their sort of people, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not just judging what people have done; it seems to be judging what they will ever do as well. So it gets a
Mhm,
bit kind of Minority Report, I guess, where these sort of scales and judgments for because it's this kind of I don't know if she's old, but kind of middle-aged lady that goes up first to be judged by Arthur and holds her hands out. You see the scales, the tattoo on Ethan Hawke's arm kind of rock as if it's trying to find is it going to balance or not. And then it
mhm,
it gives us the red. It's unbalanced, and it sort of sucks her life from her, and she dies there and then. But before that, she's like, "I've been a good person," and Arthur goes, "I know you have, but the, you've been judged," and it's quite good. And now it's the Egyptian god Amit is what the one they're on about. He was like the devourer of the dead. As
mhm.
well, we're all gonna be Egyptologists by the end of this show, I think.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So there. So, but her heart was found to not be pure, and yeah, it kills her. But it was quite. It's a very very well done shot as well. So Arthur's not Arthur. Stephen's hiding in the crowd. He's just put his hood up. That seems to be the way that you hide from people. It's just to put your hood up, even though he's the only one with a hood up. So it
Yeah,
sticks out like a sore thumb, really. But yeah, a great shot. But there is some sort of cult mentality going on here, and I don't mean
yeah,
to call
yeah, yeah,
um, Egyptian kind of gods or anything cults. I just mean that's got the sort of demonstration that's going on. Arthur's obviously seemed to be some
yeah,
sort of idol because everyone worshipped him. Then these people wanted to be judged; they were asking to be.
yeah, yeah. Exactly, and it is the sort of cult like. There does seem to be some sort of
But we
their
should
sort of
mention
power in.
when he woke up as well, Oscar Isaac. He has this gold scarab beetle that presumably
Mhm,
Mark stole, went in. That's the point. That's why he was there. And he'd obviously jumped out of this big house, landed in the field, and knocked knocked himself out. So Stephen woke up, or what happened? We don't know. But he's got this
yeah.
gold scarab, which is what everybody's after.
And this is a great sequence that there comes of that. So obviously they see Stephen. Harrow asks him for the scarab back, which Stephen, tries there to do. but he physically can't. His body won't actually let him. Um, so nice bit of sort of humour going on there, and then he gets chased by the villagers, and then we see our first sort of a time sort of jump, as it were, an odd sort of sequence here. So
Yeah, Stephen gets himself in some
you know,
trouble. He's like surrounded by people. It's some great acting from Oscar Isaac to make his arm and his legs kind of look detached from his body, because his facial expressions are obviously, I want to give you this scarab beetle, just take it from me. But Khonshu's not letting him. We can hear Khonshu being like, do not give him this scarab. And then he loses control of his limbs because the god is stopping him from handing it over to Ethan Hawke. And it's some fantastic acting. But yeah, he sort of looks like he's about to have a seizure, I guess, if you've ever seen
mhm,
anyone have a seizure. I know it's a horrible thing to try and imagine, but it's the only way to really describe it. His eyes go, they roll back, and then the scene sort of flashes, and all of a sudden, Stephen wakes up again, coated in these. Well, we presume they're bad guys. We don't really know, but these thugs like blood,
oh,
and yeah, not. And he's killed all these people, and the villagers are sort of
yeah,
stunned, and Ethan Hawke is bemused. But there was a point just before that as well where Ethan Hawke noticed Stephen, and so when I know you, you're the mercenary. So and
mm,
Stephen is panicked at this point. He has no idea what's going on, as you would.
yeah,
But yes, a
yeah,
great piece of sequencing to kind of not give us everything yet, because we don't. It would be
exactly,
too
yeah,
soon to
yeah,
show us everything that's going on. This
uh-huh,
episode is purely
yeah,
until right at the end from Stephen's perspective. But yeah, those time
yeah.
jumps are cool and they're really
Um,
well shot.
Yeah, and then we have a great there sequence. So he steals this van. It's a muffin van, a cupcake van. Um, so he steals this van. He's driving down the mountainside. The villagers are there chasing them. Um, some nice sort of action. Cars falling off the side of the mountain and all kinds of stuff. Um, then one of the bad guys manages there to jump into the van. Stephen's panicking. He doesn't know what's there to do. And then we have another time there jump. And at the end of that, we actually see that the bad guy sitting in the back of the van. He's been shot, and Stephen has the gun in his hand, um, which exactly, it's a big sort of shock there going on, a big uh, shock for their Stephen, and it is a great there sequence, and again Oscar Isaac does it really well. Now, at work there, Nathan, I spoke actually. So I work in mental health their services, and I was speaking with their psychiatrist about this their associative their disorders, which is something that the Moon Knight character has. So I was asking him about this, and one of the things that we spoke about is that feeling where, and we've probably all there had it, or if you drive. So if you're driving somewhere, and you have that feeling where you've been there driving, and then you kind of suddenly come round and you can't remember. Your last sort of 10 minutes of driving, or you've driven so many miles, but you can't actually remember it. And and this is this is a this is a facet of their associative their disorder, but that's something that we've all, or lots of us have actually had in our lives. So I did find this sort of sequence quite sort of good, as in we've all kind of been there.
Yeah, it's when you kind of go on autopilot. I know this is obviously completely different, but yeah, you hear people talk about that all the time, that they'll suddenly like blink and they've driven 40, 50 miles, like, and they've not thought about it.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think a lot of that might
yeah.
be muscle memory as well, of just being able to drive uh, and not really think, which sounds really dangerous. But yeah, I think that's the most relatable way to sort of talk about this sequence of he's driving. He's a good driver as well, Stephen.
Well, for someone who says he doesn't know how to drive as
Yeah.
well, he
So
managed to
is
get
there a
in.
bit of is there a bit of bleed over in skill that like Mark can do something? So the muscle memory, 'cause it's the same muscles. Like the muscle
Yeah.
memory is there, so it's kind of yeah, because it's a big truck that he's driving as well. And I've never driven something that big, but I can't imagine it's as easy to drive as like a Nissan Micra or something like that. So, but he moves that around the mountains, the mountain roads pretty well. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a great sequence and kind of demonstrates. Oh Christ, this other personality is dangerous. Like for someone like you who doesn't know a lot about Moon Knight, you're obviously thinking at this point, like, damn, this other whoever this other person is, this god, this whatever they are, the real deal. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. A great there sequence. Um, Somehow he does manage to get rid of all of the bad guys, and then suddenly he's back in their London again. So we're back to you know normal sort of Stephen's life. Um, this is where he notices the goldfish, and he decides to take the goldfish back to the shop, um, and the shopkeeper sort of mentions to him, well, you were here there yesterday, and of course he's no recollection of that. So, um, and then this is where we find out actually 3 days have there passed. He thinks he's got his their date. He turns up there to the restaurant. Um, Finds out. He actually phones his date up because she hasn't turned up, and you know, uh, it was meant to be Thursday night or Friday night, and it's now Sunday. So 2-3 days have actually passed, and Stephen has sort of no real sort of recollection of that.
Yeah, and there's some good more cinemat. There's some good cinematography in these build up to these scenes as well. There's obviously the bit where he goes to the pet shop and he's screaming at this lady. Bear in mind, also put his goldfish in a blender cup, which was a bit worrying to
Yeah,
take it to. This guy is a wreck, and this woman is this like, go away. You came in here the other day. He's like, I've never been in here, and but then he goes to get ready for the date, and he's using kind of the mirrors that are split into three. So you got the one main mirror and then the two on the side that are on hinges to try and describe it to people.
yeah,
And so we get three shots of Stephen, which is quite cool because we know at the minute there's three
hmm
separate things, identities going on. So that was quite interesting. But yeah, the scene,
yeah,
and also Stephen is a vegan, as we found out earlier when he was talking to somebody about the date, and they were like, "You're a vegan. What the hell are you going to have at a steak restaurant?" And he was, but he then orders a steak as the restaurant's about to close. He's like, "Just give me a steak," but he doesn't know how to order a
yeah,
steak. So the guy's like, "Well, what cut do you want?" And he's like, "Just the best one." And he's like, "How do you want it cooked?" Just cooked. like, so this guy's a wreck. But yeah, he finds out he's lost 2 days. It's Sunday. Quite lucky he's not missed any work. But
well, I was, yeah, I know. I mean, um,
but
there is this. Well, yes, we'll get back to that later. He goes back to the flat. He finds a phone. So he's looking around the flat. He finds a phone and the key. Um, he phones one of the numbers on the phone. The Layla. So I take it this is a character who's known there to
I
Mark.
don't know. Yeah, for Mark. Yeah, we don't know anything about Layla, but there's that other number in there which is Ducharme. Or I'm sorry,
Hmm.
French people, if I'm butchering that. Now, Ducharme is the French soldier I was on about last week and mentioned he's kind of like his friend and his helicopter pilot in the
Okay.
comics. So he's obviously in this universe as well. But he was the one that went with Mark to Egypt where he got killed in his comics origin story. So that's the same name. Whether that's just an Easter egg or whether that's a character that we could expect, who don't know at this point. I don't think anyone is down to
Yeah.
play this character, and I wouldn't really want to check because it would be spoiler territory
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So it might happen. It might
But
not. Again, Layla calls her Stephen Mark. So again another reference there to the Mark, their character. Um, Now, funny what you should say again. Again, we have another another shot with the mirror, and Stephen looks different in it.
Yeah, we kind of get our first glimpse of Mark. So not a lot other than body language. There's not a lot of difference between the two, obviously. But we do kind of
Yeah.
see those classic. If you've not seen it, which I don't know why you're listening to this if you've not seen it, but just in case you haven't, that you get those kind of classic horror movie shots where the guys look at their reflection, they think something's up, they turn around and the reflection doesn't move. We get a couple of those as well, and they're kind of trying to explain what's going on. I guess Khonshu. We get kind of a good look at Khonshu as well, with Mark kind of running out of his flat, going into the lift, trying to go downstairs, and then this big CGI god holding a big scepter and a big skull head, has a big skull head, kind of comes stomping towards him,
Hmm.
and that's Khonshu. Looks fairly similar
Okay.
to how Khonshu looks in the comics as well in most of his iterations. Which is
Yeah.
quite cool. We get the funny scene that you might have seen as a trailer where he's kind of crouched down in the corner and the old lady gets in the lift, and Steven's just like, "Oh, I was just looking for my contact lens," like as he's cowering in the corner as well. So it's pretty fun. So Khonshu, for those that don't know or haven't listened to our preview pod, he's like the god of the moon. So that's where obviously the name Moon Knight comes from as well.
Yeah. Um, so so then we have another one of these time sort of shifts, as it were, and he's on the bus,
Mm.
and then he's back at his work. Um,
On the bus as well, we should say he sees when he gets is it when he gets off the bus he sees Arthur.
he gets off the bus, he sees Arthur, yeah, um, and then so he's in at work again, sort of. Now we know by this. I mean, I'm not even sure how much time has actually passed by this sort of point, but there Donna is there again. Um, so it doesn't sound like he has missed any work. I'm sure she would have mentioned that. Uh,
No, well, it must have been a Friday when he was meant to go on the date because yeah, Donna didn't say anything about him missing work. Now that's on the presumption he works Monday to Fridays. We don't know.
exactly. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. So we don't know, and we're probably talking a bit too much sort of logically about
yeah, we don't need to get
it.
into the HR of the HR proceedings of working at a museum.
Well, I did kind of wonder about this. However, Harrow turns up at the museum. There's a nice sequence here where sort of Stephen gets sort of trapped by them, and there's a nice line from there, Harrow, when he mentions that there's the chaos in you. And I thought, well, that's a nice sort of line. That's maybe showing us that there is someone else there. I think we have gathered that by now, that there is someone else within Stephen, but the chaos part.
Yeah, it's good, and there's some more good cinematography as well. As Stephen goes to talk to Arthur for the first time, he stood right next to a picture of Amit, the god I was talking about. And he kind of puts his hand
Hmm.
on him. So for those that don't know what Amit would have looked like, is the picture where it's like a crocodile head with like a lion and a hippo's body. And he puts his hand on it,
Yeah,
and that's the god that we've been talking about this whole time. But yeah, it's another great scene, and he obviously tries to judge Stephen and do that. The bit where he puts the stick between the hands and it's meant to represent the scales, and then he's
yeah,
just like, "Oh, you're different." Um,
yeah,
but also, there's a lot of people that are obviously in this cult because Stephen tries to get help from the security guard, who just pulls his sleeve up to reveal obviously the symbol that he's part of this group, and everybody's in it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
until these tourists burst through the door and kind of give Stephen a little bit of an out.
yeah,
And
yeah,
we that's kind of where we head into the end sequence for this episode.
yeah. Now, I did want to just to talk about this bit because earlier Donna had threatened Mark with inventory,
Yeah,
and this is just a little bit again. So we've seen London, we've seen sort of wonky London. I just want wanted to mention there, Nathan, that certainly in my mind, over in there, Britain, we do not do inventory, we do stock taking, and Donna should have said, "You're on stock taking, Mark." There, Stephen, not, not the inventory. So,
I think that's a
a wee
fair
slip
point
up, I thought.
as well. And I also would have thought, like, I've worked in a couple of shops before where we do kind of stock check and stuff like that in the back, away from the public, not having to deal with any
Yeah,
crappy people. Like, that sounds great. I never would mind standing in the warehouse doing stock checking or whatever, because I wouldn't have to be on the shop floor dealing with crappy people. Like,
well,
it's great. You get to listen to the radio or put your headphones on and just check stock levels.
yeah,
I was a bit confused. I don't know if you've
yeah.
ever worked in a shop, but there was a bit where he was like
Uh,
getting the same item out of the whatever case they all arrived in, but he was scanning each individual one. And I'd
uh-huh.
say, well, whenever I've done stock taking, you scan one, check how many you're meant to have, and then just count them and move on. So I didn't know why he was scanning the same barcode again and again. So he's obviously not very good
Yeah.
at his job, but we know he doesn't seem to be very good at his job. So
Although he knows a lot about Egypt, though. I mean, that is something that we did find earlier on, is that he's actually passionate about their sort of Egyptian history.
yeah, if he
Um,
wasn't so unhinged, like, see, he was trying to be a tour guide at one point, and he was talking to this girl about how they put all the organs in the jars, which seems a bit
yeah,
inappropriate. And it was another cool scene because she said to him something like, "Oh, how did it feel to get rejected from the field of reeds?" Which is what I was talking about earlier when people get judged. If they get judged as pure, they can
yeah,
go on to the field of reeds. If you guys remember the end of Gladiator, um, and yeah, and she said that to him, and he was like, "I'm not dead," but did that really happen, or was that someone telling Stephen that Mark's dead and he's been resurrected?
yeah.
There's probably just a bit of symbolism. But yeah, I wouldn't put him on tour guide duty. He seems like a really nice guy, but I'd worry that he would like flash and kill everyone.
Quite, quite. So, and like you say, we are just about at the end. So he's getting stalked by this the creature. Um, he's running away from it now. Now, I don't know about you, Nathan, but the bathroom that he ends up in looks far too fancy to be a sort of behind the scenes bathroom.
I reckon it. I don't know. This museum seems quite fancy. It might just be a well looked after bathroom. But well, they need to get a
Yeah,
bathroom in there with as many mirrors as possible, which is what they went for because there's some shots
yeah,
in there. So yeah, it was a bit of a fancy bathroom. But Londoners, they got a lot of money down there, so that might
yeah,
be where our
yeah,
tax
very much.
tax dollars are going on museum
Yeah.
bathrooms.
So, so, so he's trapped in it. Um, but then Mark now there appears in the mirror,
Mm.
and he's talking to their Stephen and basically saying, "Look, it's my sort of time now. If you let me do it, I'll sort this out." Um, and so the creature gets absolutely smashed. We see it getting thrown out of the bathroom, and there he is, the Moon Knight.
Yeah, it's a cool transition. So Mark kind of begs Steven to give him control. If we want to live, you need to give me control because
Yeah,
there's these big. Arthur's obviously got control of Amit, the Devourer, who's kind of unleashed these dog things onto Steven. We're not sure if it's really happening at first, but it does seem to be. And Steven seems to chill out for a second, take a breath, and then Mark's able to take control. So we don't exactly know how that works in his mind, how you give someone control. But he sort of just relaxes for a second almost, takes one breath, and then it's done. Mark takes over. Moon Knight then takes over. We see a cool scene of the all kind of the white costume coming up. And as we know, Moon Knight wears white because he doesn't care if people see him coming. And obviously, it's the same color as the moon in a sort of
yeah,
roundabout way. So Moon Knight looks cool, looks badass, and he clearly acts badass. We get to see that scene from the trailer where he's just punching some. We thought it might have been a person's head in, but it turned out to be some kind of undead dog.
Yeah,
And that's it. Moon Knight walks to frame, and credits roll. There's no post-credit
yeah.
scene, is there? If there was, I missed it.
Uh, well, if there was, I missed it too.
I did.
I
I did
don't think.
scan
I
through
don't,
the credits. Disney Plus doesn't make it super easy to scan through the credits, so I had a quick look and I was like, "There doesn't seem to be one." Uh, but no, it was good. It was
um,
good to get a bit of action. I'm glad they didn't give us everything in episode one. Like we didn't get
yeah,
to see Moon Knight really do anything other than punch the thing's head in. But we got to take a
yeah,
look at what we're
exactly.
dealing with, and it was a good first episode, I
Yeah,
thought.
it was. I absolutely loved it. It was great. I watched it twice. The second time round, it was just as good. Um, I am wondering. So yeah, so it gives us lots of things to think about. Moving forward, how where will it go from sort of here? I'm wondering if we'll get some sort of flashbacks. It might fill out some of the bits, maybe from sort of Mark's.
I think we will. I
Um,
think we will get some episodes from Mark's perspective. I would
yeah,
imagine so anyway, unless they want to keep everything under wraps and tell the story a different way. Um, but
maybe.
we
Yeah,
are. I think we're going to get to see Layla. We're going to get to see Mark do some stuff.
yeah,
But no, it was great, and it gave you a character to kind of have sympathy for, rather than just another mercenary badass who can obviously beat the crap out of anyone. In Mark
yeah,
Spector,
yeah,
we got to
definitely.
see
Yeah.
the other side of it, a kind of more vulnerable side. So I think they
So
did the character justice in episode one. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
yeah, yeah, definitely, and we'll be obviously we will be following all of that. So Nathan, thank you, thanks for your insights as well. I think you've really opened up there. It's given me lots of stuff to think about actually moving forward as well. So, and like I say, I think one of the good things, and fair play to Marvel and to the Disney, is not actually given much information out. So we are speculating, but that's a good thing. I think it makes it a lot more fun.
Definitely, it makes it a hell of a lot more fun. So they're good at keeping
Yeah,
things under wraps. So we shall see where it goes in episode two. I was quite
yeah,
surprised it was just a one episode release. Usually they've given us kind of two or three, haven't they, to begin with?
yeah.
But with only
Yeah.
6 episodes, they've probably done the right thing.
I think that they have. Yeah. So once again, Nathan, thank you so much.
Anytime, anytime.
Um, yeah, and thanks everybody for listening. And I am going to sign off with this. And big apologies, but later skaters.
Latest gators.